I remember the exact second my life in Afghanistan truly began. It was the moment I realized we were already inside the kill zone, and the enemy was just waiting to close the trap. My name is Staff Sergeant Hale, United States Army. If you think war is all noise and chaos, you're wrong. Before the first shot, there is always a strange silence. This is the story of the day that silence almost killed us in Kandahar. We thought it was a routine patrol. By the end of that morning, nothing about my idea of routine would ever be the same. The sun was just starting to rise when we rolled out of the base. The sky over Kandahar had that pale orange glow that made the mountains look closer than they really were. I sat in the back of the lead MR-8, rifle across my chest, headset on, watching the world through a small, dusty window. Inside the vehicle, the air was thick with diesel, sweat, and gun oil. My guys were quiet, not if it is in English, but because everyone was running their own mental checklist. Nobody said it out loud, but we all knew the truth. Any calm day in Afghanistan can turn into hell in a single heartbeat. I never trusted easy missions. On paper, that one was simple. Drive the route, show presence, check a small village where there were reports of possible insurgent movement. No direct contact expected. Those 4 words had been written on a lot of missions that ended in blood. As the MRAP rumbled along the dusty road, I went through my usual ritual. Sectors of fire, radio frequencies, call signs, medevac plan, air support distance. I did not rely on luck, I relied on preparation. The road cut through open fields, broken by a few mud brick compounds on our left and a dry riverbed on our right. That riverbed bothered me from the first second I saw it. It was the perfect place to hide men, weapons, or something worse. "Keep your eyes on that wadi," I said over the intercom. "Roger that, Sergeant," my gunner answered, hands tightening on the grips of the .50 caliber as he scanned the horizon. The village came into view slowly, like it was trying to decide if it wanted to reveal itself. Small, low houses, narrow alleys, a couple of kids running near a wall that looked like it could collapse with a hard shove. A few men stood in doorways, watching us. They didn't smile, they didn't wave, they just stared. That was the first hook for my instincts. Normally, when we rolled into a village, kids ran toward us, curious, excited, hoping for candy or water. This time, no one moved closer. Women pulled their children inside. Doors closed. Curtains shifted, then went still. Something was wrong. I could feel it long before I could see it. We stopped near the center of the village. The MRAP hissed and groaned as it settled. I pushed the door open and stepped into the heat that hit my face like an open oven. My boots sank. If it is in English, use a clear, natural American English accent. "Alpha Team, on me. Bravo, secure the vehicles and watch the flanks," I ordered. As my guys moved into position, that strange silence grew heavier. No laughter from kids, no animals, no daily village noise. Just the low idle of our engines and the faint crackle of the radio. The back of my neck started to burn. That was my body's built-in alarm. You don't get it in training. You earn it after enough times walking away from places where other people didn't. I scanned the rooftops. For 1 second, I saw a shadow move behind a low wall. Then it was gone. I keyed my radio. "Eagle 1, this is Reaper 2-1. Something's off. Locals are too quiet. I've got possible movement on the rooftops and the wadi to the east. Keep eyes on us. Over." "Copy, Reaper 2-1. We're watching. Call if you need steel," the voice replied. I didn't know when the first shot would come. I just knew it would. It started with a single, violent crack, not the echoing boom of a distant rifle. A sharp, angry snap that tore the air right next to my head. I heard the round swam into the MRAP's armor behind me with a heavy metallic punch. "Contact! Contact! Contact! Sniper! Rooftop! 11 o'clock!" I shouted, throwing myself behind the front wheel of the vehicle. In less than a second, the village exploded into war. Machine guns opened up from the left side of the street, rounds ripping across the road. Another burst came from the dry riverbed to our right, exactly where I had not wanted the enemy to be. We were caught in a classic L-shaped ambush, and we were already in the center of it. They had waited for us to dismount. They wanted us exposed, off the armor, caught between cover and confusion. "Everyone get to cover! Gunners, light up those rooftops and the wadi!" I yelled into the radio. My heart was hammering, but my voice stayed flat and controlled. Fear has a sound. I refused to let my men hear it in me. The .50 caliber on our lead vehicle roared to life, shaking the air as it spat fire into the building where the first shot came from. The second gun truck swung its turret toward the riverbed and unleashed a wall of rounds that chewed into the dirt and stone. Dust erupted everywhere. Windows shattered. Chunks of brick and concrete flew through the air. The quiet village was gone, replaced by noise so loud it felt like it was inside my skull. One of my soldiers, Rodriguez, slid in next to me behind the wheel well, breathing hard, eyes wide but focused. "Sergeant, they're pushing up on the right side," he shouted over the chaos. "Stay low, pick your targets, don't waste ammo," I said. As I spoke, I peeked over the hood, just high enough to see shapes moving along the edge of the wadi. In that moment, I understood something clearly. If we stayed pinned here, we were dead. They would keep us fixed in place and slowly walk rounds into us until one of them got lucky. Or, if it is in English, use a clear, natural American English. If it is in another language, use a clear, natural accent for that language. Read it at a normal pace. Worse, they would try to close in. I keyed my higher channel. "Eagle, this is Reaper 2-1. We are in a complex ambush, taking effective fire from multiple positions, left and right. Request immediate close air support and QRF. Marking our position with smoke. Over." "Reaper 2-1, copy. CAS inbound, QRF spinning up. Hold your ground," the reply came. Hold your ground. Easy words when you're not the one getting shot at. For us, those words meant one thing: survive the next 5 minutes. "Pop smoke," I shouted. The canister hissed as thick purple smoke spilled into the road, marking our position and eating into the enemy's line of sight. Rounds cracked overhead, throwing sparks off the MRAP and kicking dust into our faces. On the net, I heard the tense voices of some of my younger guys. For a few of them, this was their first real firefight. "Listen up," I said, my voice cutting through the channel. "We've trained for this. This is our fight. We own this ground. Keep your sectors. Communicate. They're trying to scare you. Don't let them. We are the United States Army. We do not break." Sometimes the most important weapon on the battlefield is a calm voice. But we couldn't just sit there and wait to be picked apart. They had the advantage of concealment and terrain. We had discipline, coordination, and more firepower than they could ever dream of. "Bravo team, keep heavy suppression on that wadi. Alpha, on me. We're moving up the left side to clear those firing points," I ordered. Rodriguez looked at me and nodded. Fear was still in his eyes, but it had changed shape. Now it lived next to determination. We moved from cover to cover, low and fast, using the thickening smoke and the explosions of dust from our own heavy guns as imperfect shields. Every step felt like it might be the one that drew the bullet with my name on it. We reached the first building where the sniper had fired from. I signaled the stack with hand gestures. We didn't need words. One deep breath. One last moment to feel the fear and then push it aside. "Breaching," I said. The door flew open. We flowed inside, weapons up, hearts pounding, every sense stretched to the breaking point. I knew one thing for sure in that moment. If we didn't take this fight to them, they were going to bury us in this village. The door flew open, and we flowed inside, weapons up, hearts pounding, every sense stretched to the breaking point. The air was cooler in there, but it felt heavier, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. For a second, there was nothing, just dust floating in a shaft of light, the echo of the door slamming against the wall, and the sound of my own breathing in my ears. Then I saw it, a shape trying to melt into the shadows behind a hanging blanket. "Contact! Front!" I shouted, and my rifle came up almost by itself. I don't remember pulling the trigger. I remember the recoil, the muzzle flash, the body dropping behind the blanket. If it is in English, use a clear, natural American English accent. If it is in another language, use a clear, natural accent for that language. Read it at a normal pace. I remember the smell of burned powder mixing with the old, stale air in that room. In combat, your brain doesn't store every image. It saves only what matters: movement, sound, threat, decision. We cleared the first room fast. No time to think, no time to process. Every second we stayed still inside that house was another second the enemy could reposition outside. "Room clear," Rodriguez said behind me, his voice tight but steady. "Moving left," I answered, already sliding along the wall toward the next doorway. That doorway felt like the mouth of something waiting to swallow us. "Flash out," one of my guys said, pulling the pin and tossing a flashbang through the opening. The explosion went off with a white-hot burst of light and sound. We pushed in right behind it, stepping over splinters of wood and broken clay. This time, they were ready. 2 insurgents were waiting in the corner, dazed but not completely stunned. One of them fired, wildly, rounds tearing into the wall a foot from my head. Plaster and dust exploded into my face as I dropped to a knee and fired back. The first man went down, his rifle clattering across the floor. "Simbora parchi dois." The second tried to bring his weapon up, but Rodriguez was already on him, 3 precise shots stitching across his chest. For a heartbeat, the world shrank to that single room. My breathing, their bodies, the ringing in my ears, the vibrations of machine gun fire still thundering somewhere outside. Then the world rushed back all at once. "Reaper 2-1, this is Reaper 2-3. We've got multiple movers trying to flank from the east. They're using the alleyways," another squad leader called over the radio. Of course they were. They hadn't thrown everything at us yet. This ambush wasn't random. It was planned, coordinated. They wanted to fix us in place, then close in and finish the job. 2-3, hold them off as best you can. "We're clearing the main firing position on the left. Once we're done, we'll shift to support your push," I replied. I turned to my men. "We are not dying in this house. We clear this building, then we take the fight back to them. You hear me?" They answered with a sharp, unified, "Roger, Sergeant." Sometimes it isn't the bullets that keep a squad moving. It's the belief that the man leading them refuses to back down. We moved deeper into the structure, the layout turning into a maze of narrow hallways and small rooms. The kind of place where a single hidden enemy with a cheap rifle could kill the best man you ever trained. At one corner, we heard footsteps above us. The ceiling was made of rough wooden beams and packed earth. "Second floor," I whispered, pointing up. We couldn't afford to leave anyone behind us. Not here, not in the middle of an ambush. We found a set of crude stairs at the end of a dark hallway. They were steep, cramped, and completely exposed. If someone up there was waiting with a grenade or a shotgun, that staircase would become a funnel of death. I looked at it for a long second that probably lasted less than a breath. Then I made a choice. "I'll take point," I said. Rodriguez frowned. "Sergeant." "That's an order," I cut him off. "Cover me. If I go down, you finish the climb and clear the room. No hesitation." His jaw tightened, but he nodded. "Yes, Sergeant." I started up the stairs, one slow step at a time. Every creak of the wood sounded like a gunshot in my ears. My rifle was up, my sight locked on the patch of light at the top. One more step. Another. Halfway up, a shadow moved across the opening. I didn't think. I fired. The figure stumbled backward, crashing to the floor above. At the same time, something small rolled toward the stairwell, clinking across the dirty boards. "Grenade!" someone yelled. Instinct took over. I threw myself backward, crashing into Rodriguez and sending both of us. If it is in English, use a clear, natural American English accent. The explosion ripped through the top of the stairwell, sending splinters and dust raining down where my head had been a heartbeat earlier. My ears rang, my shoulders screamed in pain, but I was still alive. "Sergeant, you good?" Rodriguez asked, dragging me behind the nearest piece of cover. I took a breath, blinked the dust out of my eyes, and forced my vision to focus. "I'm good," I said. "They just wasted their best chance to kill me. Now it's our turn." Fear tried to climb back up my spine, but I shoved it down. Not today. Not in front of my men. Not in this village. I called it in over the radio. "Reaper 2-1 to all elements. Enemy using grenades. Second floor. Primary structure on the left side of the main street. They're dug in. We're going to finish clearing this position and then shift to support 2-3. Keep that wadi suppressed." Outside, the .50 cal answered for me. Another long burst hammering the enemy positions near the riverbed. The ground shook under my boots. "New plan," I told my team. "We're not walking back up those stairs into another grenade. We're going to make our own door." We moved back into the first room, where one wall connected to the neighboring building. The mud brick was old and cracked. "Demo, front and center," I ordered. One of my guys dropped his pack and pulled out a small explosive charge. Nothing fancy, just enough to punch a hole through a wall big enough for a man to pass through. While he worked, I felt that familiar tick in my chest again, the sense that time was slipping away from us. Every second we spent here, the enemy outside was regrouping, shifting positions, trying to find a weakness. "Make it quick," I said quietly. "Yes, Sergeant, 30 seconds," he replied. In those 30 seconds, I thought about everything that had brought us here. The training, the endless drills. The times we had cursed under our breath on some hot range back in the States, wondering why we had to run the same scenario 100 times. This was why. He slapped the charge on the wall, ran the wire back to our position, and gave me a nod. "Fire in the hole," I shouted. The blast shook the building, dust pouring from the ceiling, the wall splitting open in a cloud of smoke and debris. On the other side was a dimly lit room in the adjacent house, another potential threat, but also another angle. We moved through the new opening, weapons sweeping, fingers steady on triggers. This room was empty. Good, that meant we could use it. I looked up and saw wooden beams overhead. "Ladder," I said. "We're going up through here instead of back up those stairs. If they're waiting at the top, we'll come at them from a direction they won't expect." We found a short ladder in the corner, old but still solid enough to hold. "I'll go first again," I said. Rodriguez shot me a look. "Sergeant, with respect." "With respect, I'm not asking for volunteers," I replied. "We finish this, we close this fight, then we walk out of this village together. That's how this goes." I climbed, pushing a loose panel aside as I emerged into the upper floor. The room above smelled of sweat, smoke, and something metallic. There were 3 men inside. One was slumped against the wall, the one I had shot earlier on the stairs. The second was scrambling to bring his rifle around toward me. The third was reaching for another grenade. In moments like that, you don't have time to think about who they are, what they believe, or why they're here. You have only 2 questions. Are they a threat, and can they kill your men? My weapon was already up. I shot the man reaching for the grenade first. His hand jerked, the grenade rolled away harmlessly. Then I shifted to the rifleman and fired again. He dropped before he could bring his weapon to his shoulder. "Top floor clear," I shouted, breathing hard. Behind me, my team poured into the room, securing corners, checking bodies, making sure no one else was hiding in the shadows. From that vantage point, I could see more of the village through the broken windows. Smoke curled up from where the Apaches had already hit enemy positions near the outskirts. Our vehicles still stood, armor pitted and scarred, but very much alive. The enemy's fire was getting weaker, less coordinated, more desperate. We had broken the spine of their ambush, right here, in this building. But the fight wasn't over yet, not until every one of my men was back in his seat on the MRAP and we were rolling out of this cursed kill zone. I keyed my radio again. "Reaper 2-1 to all elements. Primary enemy stronghold on the left side is neutralized. We have elevated position and line of sight on the main street and eastern alleys. 2-3, mark your position with smoke. We're going to help you finish this." "Copy, 2-1. "We've been waiting to hear that," came the reply, breathless but relieved. I took one last look at the room where the men who had tried to kill us had made their stand. It wasn't pride I felt, it wasn't even anger. It was something colder. They had chosen this fight. We had finished it. "Set up in these windows, pick your shots," I told my men. "We're not just surviving this ambush, we're ending it." And as I settled my rifle on the windowsill and scanned the chaotic street below, I knew one thing. Kandahar would remember this day. Because today, the trap closed on the wrong side. From that shattered window, I could see the whole ugly truth of the ambush laid out in front of us. The street that had been quiet just minutes earlier was now a maze of craters, burning debris, and bodies. Smoke crawled along the ground like it was trying to hide the damage, but there was no hiding what had happened here. What the enemy hadn't counted on was that we were still standing. 2-3, pop your smoke," I said into the radio. A second later, I saw it. Bright green smoke hissing from the far side of the village, marking my other squad's position. They were pinned down at the intersection of two narrow alleys, trading fire with insurgents dug in behind crumbling walls and overturned carts. "Eyes on you, 2-3, I continued. "We've got an elevated position. Call out your targets. We'll take the heads off this thing." "Glad to hear your voice, 2-1, he replied. "Enemies in the alley at our 12 o'clock, about 50 meters. They're trying to push closer using doorways for cover." I scanned the alley through my sight. There they were, dark shapes darting from doorway to doorway, using the tight walls to their advantage. The kind of urban fight where one wrong move could cost you an entire fire team. "Rodriguez, you see that second doorway, the one with the broken frame on the left?" I asked. "Got it," he said, settling behind his rifle. "Wait for it," I said quietly. A second later, an insurgent leaned out to fire at 2-3's position. "Now," I whispered. Rodriguez squeezed the trigger. The man dropped before he even knew he was exposed. We started picking them apart, one by one. Every time they moved, we punished them. Every time they tried to lean out and get a shot at my guys on the ground, someone in my team on the top floor was already waiting. Down below, I could hear the renewed confidence in my squad's voices. They knew we had their backs now. They weren't alone in that alley anymore. "Keep pressing them, 2-3, I said. "They're breaking. Don't let them regroup." Part 3. The enemy fire grew more erratic, less coordinated. A burst here, a single rifle shot there. No more synchronized volleys. No more carefully timed ambush fire. They had tried to pull us into a kill zone. Instead, they had dragged themselves into one. Outside the village, the Apaches circled like hawks, scanning for fleeing insurgents. Our vehicles held the road, engines idling, heavy guns still aimed at the wadi and roof lines. For the first time since that first crack of a sniper round, I felt the balance shift fully in our favor. But this was Afghanistan. Complacency could kill you faster than any bullet. "Don't get comfortable," I told my man. "This is the part where they'll either run or try something desperate." As if on cue, I saw it. A small group of fighters broke off from the main alley and started moving toward the back of the village, using side paths and gaps between buildings. They weren't moving like men in full retreat. They had purpose, direction. They were heading toward our vehicles. "Reaper 2-1 to all elements. We've got a group moving toward the rear access route. Possible attempt to hit our trucks from behind or plant IEDs on our exit path. Bravo, tighten that perimeter. Nobody gets near those MRAPs," I ordered. "Roger, Sergeant. We've got movement on thermals." "We'll handle them," came the reply from the vehicle crews. Even from this distance, I could feel my chest tighten a little. Those vehicles were more than just steel and tires. They were our lifeline home. We were not leaving them behind. A few seconds later, I heard the short, controlled bursts of our dismounts near the trucks, followed by the deeper thunder of the vehicle-mounted weapons. "Contact attempted on the rear route," the Bravo team leader reported. "They tried to sneak through the gardens. Not anymore. Rear is secure." I allowed myself one slow breath of relief. But we still had one more job to do in this village. 2-3, status, I asked. "We're pushing forward. Enemy fire is light now. Some of them are dropping their weapons and running," he answered. "Copy," I said. "Let them run if they're leaving the fight. Our job is to break this ambush and protect this place, not chase ghosts into the hills." We kept covering them from above, picking off any stubborn stragglers who decided to stay and fight. Within minutes, the return fire died down to almost nothing. Then, finally, there was silence. Not the heavy, unnatural silence from before the ambush. This was different. This was the echo of a battle ending. I stepped back from the window, my hands shaking slightly now that the immediate adrenaline began to fade. My shoulder still throbbed from the fall down the stairs. My ears buzzed with a dull ringing that I knew would be with me for hours. 2-1, this is Eagle. CAS confirms no more enemy movement in your immediate vicinity. QRF is 5 minutes out. Sitrep? The voice from higher came over the radio. I took a breath and looked around the room. My men were tired, sweating, dirty, but alive. Outside, I could see some of my soldiers checking one another for wounds, patting shoulders, sharing quick looks that said more than words could. "Eagle, this is Reaper 2-1, I answered. "Ambush is broken. Multiple enemy KIA. No U.S. killed. Minor injuries. Village secure for now. We'll need to sweep for weapons caches and possible IEDs before exfil. Over." "Copy, Reaper 2-1. Outstanding work. QRF will link up with you and assume outer security. You own the village interior. Conduct your sweep, then report when you're ready to move. Over." I keyed off the radio and let that sink in for a second. We had walked into an ambush designed to crush us. Instead, we had taken it apart, piece by piece, and we were still standing in the center of it. "All right," I said to my team. "We're not done yet. We're going back down. We clear weapons, we check on civilians, and we make sure this place is safe before we roll out. We leave this village better than we found it. Understood?" They answered with a tired but firm, "Yes, Sergeant." As we moved back through the house we had just fought our way through, I saw the battlefield with new eyes. Empty shell casings. Scorch marks on the walls. Blood stains on the floor. Broken furniture. Shrapnel embedded in wood and stone. This was the price of their decision to turn their homes into battlegrounds. When we stepped back onto the street, the smoke had begun to thin. The village was damaged but not destroyed. A few doors were opening. Faces appeared behind cracked doorways, eyes wide with fear and something else. Caution, curiosity, maybe even a little hope. One older man stepped forward slowly, hands raised to show he wasn't armed. He looked at the bodies of the insurgents, then at my soldiers, then at me. I didn't speak his language, and he didn't speak mine. But war has its own vocabulary. He placed his hand over his heart, nodded once in my direction, then turned and pulled a small boy out from behind him, one of the children we had seen earlier, now shaking but alive. I remembered the moment in the courtyard when I had ordered a ceasefire on the left flank to avoid hitting civilians. That small decision, made in the middle of chaos, might have saved that child's life. Sometimes that's what separates us from the people we fight. We moved through the streets collecting weapons, checking for hidden explosives, making sure no wounded enemy fighters were waiting to take one last shot at us from the shadows. We found stashes of ammunition, extra rifles, even a few makeshift IED components. This had not been a random attack. This had been a carefully prepared trap. And it had failed. By the time the QRF rolled in, the battle was truly over. Fresh soldiers took up positions on the outskirts of the village, eyes scanning the distant hills for any sign that the enemy might try again. My men began moving back toward the vehicles, one by one, slower now, the weight of what had just happened settling onto their shoulders. Before I climbed back into the MRAP, I turned and looked down the length of that battered street one last time. If it is in English, use in a clear, natural American English accent. If it is in another language, use a clear, natural accent for that language. Read it at a normal pace. We had walked into this village as a patrol on a routine mission. We were leaving it as the men who had broken an ambush designed to wipe us out. And the villagers had seen it all. They had seen who fired first. They had seen who used their homes as firing points. They had seen who returned fire and who stopped it when civilians were in danger. They had seen the difference. As I pulled myself into my seat, the gunner above me slapped the outside of the vehicle twice. "Hell of a day, Sergeant," he said. "Yeah," I answered, strapping in and adjusting my headset. "But we're going home. That's what matters." The engine rumbled to life, and the convoy began to move. The village slowly slipped behind us, disappearing into dust and distance. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. Kandahar would remember what happened that day, and so would I, because that was the day the enemy tried to break us and learned that Americans don't break that easily. When we finally cleared the last compound and confirmed there were no more immediate threats, the order came to consolidate. We pulled our squads back toward the vehicles, one element at a time, always watching the rooftops and alley mouths like eyes in the back of our heads. No one rushed. We moved with the slow, careful confidence of men who knew they had earned their place on that street. As I walked past the courtyard where we had taken fire earlier, I saw the same boy I had noticed before, now peeking out from behind his mother. His face was streaked with dust and dried tears, but he was alive. That meant something, more than any kill count ever could. War isn't just about who you defeat, it's about who you protect. We linked up near the center of the village, right where the ambush had slammed into us at full force. Now it was just a scarred intersection. Bullet holes marked the walls, black scorch marks. If it is in English, use a clear, natural American English accent. If it is in another language, use a clear, natural accent for that language. Read it at a normal pace. Painted ugly flowers along the ground where grenades and rockets had detonated. My men checked each other over. "Let me see that arm. Turn your head, you're bleeding. You good, man?" Little fragments of concern floating in the hot air. We had minor injuries, scratches, bruises, a few cuts from shrapnel and broken glass, but no body bags, no medevac helicopter hovering over us with its doors open like a metal angel. We had taken a full-on ambush in Kandahar and walked away with everyone still breathing. That doesn't happen by accident. Part 4. As the QRF fanned out to take over the outer cordon, a captain from their unit walked up to me, helmet dusty, sunglasses streaked with sweat. "Staff Sergeant Hale?" he asked. "Yeah," I answered. "Hell of a job today," he said. "Heard it was pretty bad when the first rounds hit." I looked around at the wreckage, at my tired soldiers, at the quiet villagers watching from their doorways. "It was," I said, "but my guys held the line." "That's what matters," he nodded. "We'll take overwatch from here. You've done enough for one morning." If only it worked that way, I thought. You don't just turn off a day like this. We loaded back into the MRAPs, one by one, armor closing around us like a second skin. The gunner climbed back into the turret. The drivers checked their instruments. Radios crackled with route updates and exfil instructions. Before I closed the heavy door, I took one last look at the village. The older man from before was still standing there, his hand over his heart. Our eyes met again. There was no cheering, no applause, no dramatic gesture, just a single nod. Respect, acknowledgement, a silent agreement that for at least one more day, his home was still standing. I climbed inside and pulled the door shut. The noise of the outside world became a muffled hum. Inside, it was just the dim light, the steady vibration of the engine, and the quiet breathing of my squad. For a while, nobody spoke. Then Rodriguez broke the silence. "Sergeant," he said, "you realize they did everything right on their side, right? Terrain, timing, positions, they had us boxed in." "Yeah," I answered, "they did." "So how are we still here?" he asked, half serious, half joking, because it sure didn't feel like we were supposed to walk away from that. I thought about it for a second. "We're here," I said slowly, "because we trained for the worst day, not the easy one. Because when they tried to scare us, we stayed on the plan. Because every one of you did your job when it counted." I paused, then added, "and because under all that chaos, we had something they didn't: discipline, trust, and a reason bigger than ourselves." He nodded, leaning his head back against the armor with a tired exhale. "Feels strange," another soldier said. "One hour you're drinking bad coffee and complaining about the heat, the next hour you're in the middle of a storm. Then it's over and they tell you it's..." If it is in English, use a clear, natural American English accent. If it is in another language, use a clear, natural accent for that language. Read it at a normal pace. "Just another patrol." "That's the thing about Afghanistan," I replied. "Most days start the same way. It's how they end that you remember." The convoy started to roll. The MRAP lurched forward, heavy tires crunching over gravel and broken stone. Through the small window, I watched the village recede behind us, swallowed by dust. We didn't speak for a while. Each of us was alone with his thoughts. I replayed the ambush in my mind. The first crack of the sniper round, the grenade on the stairs, the little boy in the courtyard, the decision to stop firing when civilians were in the line of fire, even though we were under attack. There are things you learn about yourself in combat that you can't learn anywhere else. You learn what you're willing to risk. You learn what you're willing to protect. You learn what lines you refuse to cross, even when the enemy doesn't have any. Some people think American power is just about weapons and technology. They're wrong. If it is in English, use a clear, natural American English. If it is in another language, use a clear, natural accent for that language. Read it at a normal pace. Our real strength is the people inside the armor. The kid from Texas who keeps his cool under fire. The quiet specialist from Ohio who spots the ambush before it fully closes. The medic from New York who runs into a courtyard under fire because he heard a child crying. You put people like that together, give them a flag to stand under, and you get something the enemy will never understand. As we left Kandahar's outskirts and the landscape opened into wider, emptier stretches of road, the tension in the vehicle finally began to loosen. One of my guys laughed suddenly, a short, disbelieving sound. "What's so funny?" someone asked. "I just realized," he said, shaking his head, "this was supposed to be an easy day." A few chuckles rolled through the cabin. It wasn't that what he said was actually funny, it was that we were alive enough to find it funny. That's a luxury you earn. I checked my watch. Not even noon yet. Back at base, there would be debriefs, battle damage assessments, intelligence summaries. Maybe some praise from people who hadn't been there, and some second-guessing from people who never would be. That was all noise. What mattered to me was simple. We had gone out as a team. We were coming back as a team. The American flag on our vehicles was still flying. I leaned my head back and let my eyes close for a moment, not to sleep, but to lock this day into memory. The morning light in Kandahar, the burned smell of the stairwell, the weight of the radio headset on my neck, the sound of my own voice telling my soldiers in the middle of hell that we don't break. Because that's what I want people to understand when they hear this story. It's not just about the bullets and explosions. It's about what happens after, the choices you carry with you, the promises you made to the man on your left and the man on your right. When people talk about America, they talk about politics, borders, headlines. Out there, on that road in Afghanistan, it was much simpler. America was the squad inside that MRAP. America was the flag painted on the side of our armor. America was the promise we made, spoken or not, to stand our ground when others couldn't. As the base came into view and the gates opened to let us in, I felt a strange mix of exhaustion and pride settle in my chest. We had faced a well-planned ambush in one of the most dangerous places on Earth. We had adapted, fought back, protected civilians, and brought every American home. The enemy wanted to make that day the story of our defeat. Instead, it became the story of their failure. They wanted to show the village that we could be broken. Instead, the village saw that when you come after Americans, we don't run. We regroup, we return fire, we take care of our own, and we leave with our heads high. When I stepped down from the MRAP and my boots hit the gravel inside the wire, the sun felt just as hot, the dust just as thick. But something in me had changed. That day in Kandahar didn't make me a hero. It reminded me what it means to wear the uniform of the United States. It means standing in the kill zone and saying, "Not today." Not to fear, not to chaos, not to those who think they can break us with one more ambush. My name is Staff Sergeant Hale, United States Army, and that was the day in Kandahar when they tried to end us, and learned that we were just getting started.